your job as the parent is not to deal with the emotions. Like I say all the time, it's your job to set the boundary. It's their job to have the feelings. And if you can kind of keep those things very separate, it makes it so much easier when you have toddlers, because then you don't fall into these power struggles. And I did a video the other week and I was talking about like handling my almost 2-year-old. He was having like a big meltdown about something. And I was talking about how like a lot of times people can get into these like spiraling power struggles where they start throwing out like random threats to get their toddler to stop. And something I said in the video was like, if you don't stop crying, you're not getting dinner for a week. And it was just like this such a good explanation of like how we say things that are just like almost so absurd to get our kids to be like calm and pleasant and happy when like that none of that is needed, right? So I do like the least in those moments that I can in terms of like setting limits and boundaries. Like as long as everybody is safe and like our house is safe, I let it be, right? Because in those moments, like what your little ones really need is practice feeling and then regulating through their emotions. Like they don't need, like you said, a punishment. They don't need this like major discipline moment. They don't need to be like logicked or reasoned out of it. It's just like a moment for them to practice feeling their feelings. And that's it. And I feel like if you can kind of take a step back and not get so caught up in how it looks or how they're supposed to behave, or, you know, they're 3, they shouldn't be throwing tantrums anymore. Like it's so normal. And it makes it easier to like enjoy the little years too. I think that's a huge reason why I have actually enjoyed these years, is because like the tantrums don't bother me. Like it's just like, oh yeah, he's having feelings about it. That's like he's allowed to have feelings about this. I have feelings about stuff too. And then we just like move on from that moment, and it's nothing more than that. You know what I mean? But again, it starts with like, you have to back up far enough into yourself being able to be okay with those feelings and them feeling safe for you as a parent.
Absolutely. Which is why I'm glad that I ended up where I ended up in terms of what I focused on, which is just the prioritization of just feeling these feelings as adults. It's everything. And it's literally as simple as it sounds, to just simply commit to feeling them and take the responsibility for your own feelings, rather than to require your child to regulate your own emotional state, which is, I mean, it's literally like how we end up with all the struggles we struggle with as adults. So I want to double click on this though, because I know a lot of folks are going to be wondering, okay, well, what do you mean by boundaries, and what do I do that in that case, right? So if the options, so your kid is on the airplane screaming, let's say, just this instance I brought up, and you feel pressure, right? So this pressure is often imagined, whether you're at home or you have to go somewhere or whatever, but you feel some pressure to conform to an expectation that you're bringing to the moment. And so these are the options I sort of remember feeling available to me. So you can punish, right? So you can say, I'm going to take your iPad. You're not going to eat dinner for a week, whatever it is. Let alone obviously further on the spectrum, which is like, physical aggression, grabbing arms, spanking, whatever. You can incentivize by coupling some reward that has nothing to do with, what's going on. You could distract. You could try to verbally engage, right? Like use your words kind of a situation. Or, what I would have heard if I heard what you said back in the day was actually what I often did, because I didn't have a lot of tools for self-regulation. However, I was very committed to not punishing or yelling. And so I would just withdraw, like emotionally, right? So I would either sometimes be like, I'll be in the other room or something like that. Or I would just emotionally withdraw, which is a form of punishment, even if it looks more benign. It's like ignoring, dismissing the situation. So I'm imagining it's not going to look like any of those in your ideal world. So what might be maybe an example of a scenario, and how you would what literally would you say, and how would you interact with the situation?
Yeah, I mean, those are all like pretty spot on, I think, with what I see a lot. And I think there's a lot of focus in the online parenting world about like, how do you stop yelling? How do you stop being kind of this like forward-facing aggressive. But I think just as often are the people, and like myself, my tendency is like the freeze, shut down, being like, I'm done with this straight up kind of ignoring them sort of situation, which again isn't helpful because they're still not learning anything about which, like, the ultimate goal in these moments is that they're again starting to learn that skill of like regulating themselves. So I think what I tend to do looks most closely like from the outside, like the kind of shutting down, ignoring, because it's very calm, it's very quiet, it's very understated, but it's different. And the energy is different and the intention behind it is different. And I feel like that's small, but it's really important because it's very much, I come into it with this approach of like, I'm here to help, but I can't control this. So it's very much like, I know you're having a hard time. I'm here. And while I don't say a lot of words, because especially when your little ones are small, they're in a tantrum, talking so much at them can almost make it worse a lot of times, right? Like they're already dysregulated, giving them like one more thing that their brain is trying to process. If you're like, you almost go into like trying to fix it mode, can make it worse. And so I tend to be pretty quiet, but it's a very like focused, present energy. It's very much like I'm making eye contact. If they want a cuddle, they're getting a cuddle. I'm like right there in their space with them. Like, I hear you. This is really hard. A lot of times I will model like some sort of regulating thing, whether it's like taking deep breaths or like I do a lot of like shaking my body out that like helps me regulate. And again, not even like telling my toddler to do it. I'm not like, take a deep breath. I'm just doing it, right? I'm doing it in front of them. That is enough often for them to kind of meet my energy where it's at. Their nervous system, their brain is absorbing that calm from me, and then they're going to come back down. Obviously, like especially in public settings, the hardest part of this is kind of shutting out everything around you, not being so focused on the other people that you're feeling, judged or pressured to like get your kid to calm down. And I think that just comes with practice. That just comes with practice of learning to be unbothered by other people's perception of you as a mom or how good of a job you're doing or other people's annoyance or grumbling or whatever that your kid is having feelings. And I think the more you do it, the easier it is to kind of ignore all of that and just be able to like laser in and focus on your kid.